History's strange, it's alien, and it won't give us what we would like to have.
Welcome to Dave Does History, a look at historical events and their relevance to our world today. You can find us at davedoeshistory.org. Today, we're looking at a single, brutal event that really challenges our whole idea of a so-called Golden Age, the Granada Massacre of 1066. Let's get right into it. We're going to start right at the heart of the story. One single day when a city absolutely turned on itself. We're in Granada, what was supposed to be a jewel of Al-Andalus, but a storm is about to break that will shatter its very fragile peace. The date is December 30th, 1066. On this day, an absolutely enraged mob storms the royal palace. But they're not looking for the king. No, they have a very specific target in mind. The Jewish vizier, a man by the name of Joseph ibn Nagid. What happens next is just a complete cataclysm. After they assassinate the vizier, the violence just explodes out of the palace and floods into the city streets. By sunset, it's estimated that 4,000 Jews are dead. That's something like 1,500 families, pretty much the entire Jewish population of Granada, wiped out in a matter of hours. But here's the thing. How historians view this is absolutely crucial. This was not some spontaneous riot that just boiled over. No. This was the complete collapse of a political system. This massacre didn't interrupt a golden age. It exposed just how incredibly fragile that age really was all along.
So how on earth did it come to this? I mean, to really understand this explosion of violence, we have to look at the fractures that were already spreading deep inside this world.
First off, the central power that had held Muslim Spain together for so long, the Caliphate of Córdoba, was gone. It had collapsed. In its place, Al-Andalus shattered into all these small, competing kingdoms called daifas. Granada's rulers, the Zirids, were a Berber minority. Think about that. They were outsiders ruling a largely Arab population. Their grip on power was incredibly weak, built on personal loyalty, not solid institutions. It was a total recipe for instability. Now, the social glue holding all of this together was the Dhimmi Pact. This was basically the deal for non-Muslims. You pay a special tax, the jizya, and in return you get protection and the freedom to practice your religion. But, and this is the most important part, it was a system of legal subordination. You were protected, yes, but you were never, ever equal. And in this incredibly unstable world, one family rose to heights that were just unimaginable. And their story, well, it's absolutely central to this entire collapse. It's a classic story, really, a brilliant father and a son who just couldn't live up to his legacy. You can see the contrast so clearly here. Samuel Nagid, the father, was a refugee. He climbed his way to the top through pure skill and tact. He got it. He understood his power was borrowed. His son, Joseph, on the other hand, was born into that power. He grew up in a palace and saw his authority not as some temporary loan, but as his inheritance, his birthright. So Joseph's actions started to cross a very, very dangerous line. He openly favored his allies, he built this ridiculously ostentatious palace that basically screamed, "I'm royalty," and he acted with an arrogance that really offended the local elite. This wasn't just bad politics. In the eyes of many, he was violating the Dhimmi Pact itself. A subordinate was acting like a superior, and that was a threat to the entire social order. All this simmering resentment just needed a voice, and it found one in a poet named Abu Ishaq. He wrote this vicious, inflammatory poem that spread through the city like wildfire. This line right here is the most famous part. He's essentially giving people moral permission to commit violence. He's reframing it not as a sin, but as a righteous duty.
The final spark was political. An accusation surfaces that Joseph was plotting against Granada. And whether it was true or not didn't even matter. It was believable. And fueled by the poem's hateful rhetoric, this rumor led directly to the attack on the palace. They found Joseph hiding, they killed him, and then they crucified his body on the city gates as a brutal symbol.
So, what do we take away from this absolutely horrific event? Well, the massacre forces us to go back and really look at this whole idea of a golden age in Spain and ask what coexistence actually meant in practice. And this slide highlights a really key distinction. The violence in Granada was political. It was a brutal attempt to put a minority group back in its place. Conversion was never on the table. This was fundamentally different from the religious massacres of the First Crusade that happened in the Rhineland just 30 years later. There, the violence was ideological. The logic was convert or die. Two totally different logics, but the same horrific result. And this really gets to the core of the issue. The system of coexistence, this convivencia, It was pragmatic. It wasn't principled. Security was completely conditional. It was a gift from a powerful patron, not a right guaranteed by law. And a gift, as we know, can be taken away at any moment. And that leaves us with this final, really haunting question. When your rights depend on who you know, on relationships, instead of the rule of law, how secure can any minority group truly be? The Granada massacre shows us the profound fragility that exists when tolerance is just a gift from the powerful rather than an inalienable right for everyone.
Check out more stories from history at davedoeshistory.org.